So this exercise is called good sketch, bad sketch. And I think as people are transitioning, from a 2D environment to a 3D world, you have a tendency to try to put way too much information in your sketches, which can lead to challenges and problems, later as your models get more complex. So let's just take a look at a couple different ways that we could construct this end result that we see here on the screen. Pretty simple model as we go forward, but let's see some different techniques that we can use for doing this in a better way. So I'm going to delete this feature here, and I have two sketches that I've created already. So the first sketch is very simple. It's just a simple rectangle. Okay. The second sketch that I have is what somebody moving from a 2D world to a 3D world would probably think that is desirable. So this sketch took a lot of work to create. It involved creating rectangles, drawing circles, trimming, putting fillets in, lots of different things. However, this sketch is now very flexible in terms of what you can do with it. So let's say you had a design change that took this center off of this line here and moved it up. So you'd have to do that for each one of these objects. Let's say you wanted to change these rounds, from rounds to chamfer, so you'd have to delete them and then come back in and put a chamfer in. And so it may seem simple and easy when you're starting this project, but if you want to make changes later, it may become challenging and difficult to keep these sketches clean and keep them aligned. I recently opened up a model from somebody where this line and this line were not 90 degrees. They were slightly off. And then when I zoomed in here, the tangencies were not defined properly. So there was a little bump in this area. And so those problems are easily avoidable by creating simple sketches. So let's take a look at how we can achieve this, with a simple sketch and a series of sketches. So here I'm just going to edit this sketch. And I think it's okay if you want to, define where that initial cutout might be. So for example, let's just say we want to put this in here. We're just going to say this is going to be 0.5 and place that in. Now I can, position this wherever I want. I can use D on my keyboard to select the center, select here, 0.5. I'm going to put a dimension between here and here to control that distance as well. Okay, 0.25. Let's move that in. Let's make that less. So we'll make that 0.125, something like that. So that's okay from a sketch perspective. I don't want to copy that 3 more times. I might want to just have that in there as a reference point to start with. So now, when I go to create my extrusion on this, you'll notice that Fusion is smart enough to identify the closed sketches that I can work with to create an extrusion. So I can click here. I'm actually going to do this because I want to have this initial sketch just be a simple rectangle. I'm just going to drag up and do this. Now you notice that there's a setting for turning your sketches off after you create a feature that they're used in. You can turn that off, but I like to have it on. But we can just kind of toggle this, and we can reuse this sketch. I don't have to reconstruct this or create another sketch with just that circle in it. And so here we'll do press pull, and again, we're going to select this chunk down here as well, and then we could drag that up. I'm going to cancel this just to show you something as well. So we'll do press pull again. If I click my left mouse button and hold it down, I can kind of see the different choices that I can go through here. So I can choose that front face, I can choose the profile, or I can choose the bottom face. So here I have a way to kind of pick through an object to select it. So here I'm going to choose profile, and I'm going to drag this up and move it over. Okay, so now it cut through the material. Now I can turn this sketch off because I don't need it anymore. Now here I'll introduce you to a new command, and so underneath create we have an array or a pattern function. Now, a couple choices here. I like to use features, and I'm going to select this hole in my history tree down here, the direction that I want this to go, so I can select this edge. I can kind of drag this out. You see a little kind of a mini preview here. The spacing, we can just say -1. I want 4 of those, and then we can choose OK, and now we get that. Now, we saw in our original bad sketch we had a lot of rounds and fillets, and so here let's just do press pull. We'll choose these guys here. We'll make them 0.5. Press pull. We can choose these guys as well. And so now this is a lot more flexible in terms of how I might want to change this later. I can go back into this original sketch and edit it. And let's say I do in fact want this center to be lined up here. A couple choices here. I can use constraint to do that, or coincident. Now, one of the things you'll see here, it's giving me an error, and that's because of this dimension right here. That dimension is saying, you can't do that. I want you to be 0.125 away from that edge. So one of the things you could do, you could cheat and say 0 here, but Fusion won't let you do that. Some systems will. So what I need to do is delete that, and now I can use my coincident. And so now that center is always going to stay coincident with that line. I exit that, everything updates accordingly to reflect that change that I wanted. Okay. I can always come back and scroll through here and say, let's kind of play with the scenario of, you know, what if we use chamfers here instead of rounds. So let's go ahead and put some, select those edges again. So that's what chamfers would look like. Now if I scroll this way, I'm probably going to get errors. Yep, it doesn't know what to do because those lines, those edges that I referenced for the fillets don't exist anymore. So I get some nasty error messages put back at me. One of the things that you can do inside of Fusion as well, which is useful, is you can turn features on or off. So this suppress feature here turns them off, and now my rounds are correct. I can suppress my rounds and then turn this off, turn those back on, and now I don't have any failed features. I often use this to do some what if scenarios before I commit to a certain design that I have moving forward. Once you have the one that you like, you could of course delete the one that you no longer need. So my recommendations as a 2D user coming over to a 3D world, keep your sketches simple. You'll benefit them later once your models get more complex, and it's going to be much easier for you to change.